We did our research on the Greek community at Buffalo State, so we surveyed fraternity and sorority members at Buff State. Greek life at Buffalo State is very diverse. There are approximately 200 students who are members of one of 22 different fraternity and sorority chapters. The 22 chapters fall under 5 distinct councils, which include the Interfraternity Council, the National Pan-Hellenic Council, the National Pan-Hellenic Conference, the National Association of Latino Fraternal Organizations, and the local councils. All chapters were developed with the intent of following principles of scholarship and learning, community service and philanthropy, and leadership and brotherhood and sisterhood. So the problem is that fraternities and sororities on campus say they are committed to these principles, but there are many instances throughout the country of fraternity and sorority organizations involved in hazing and binge drinking. Fraternity and sorority groups also tend to be homogeneous in their composition, and members have a reputation of having an elitist attitude that forces members to conform to a certain way of living. With all that being said, it is unclear as to whether or not fraternities and sororities at Buffalo State are living up to their espoused principles. Therefore, the purpose of this study was A, to gain insight into whether or not fraternities and sororities at Buffalo State are living up to their principles and purpose, B, to determine whether they are an asset or a liability to the Buffalo State community, and C, to determine how membership in a Greek-affiliated organization affects student learning and development outcomes. In reviewing the literature, there were both positives and negatives associated with Greek life across the country. As far as the positives go, fraternities and sororities were seen as a way for students to form a built-in peer group which encourages interpersonal development through goal-directed thinking and self-regulated learning. Members of fraternities and sororities were seen to have greater social involvement, with membership also contributing to the feeling of having a sense of community on campus and positively affecting retention. The negative aspects included increased alcohol consumption as well as increases in hazing and cases of academic dishonesty. Some researchers felt that fraternities and sororities promote social hierarchy and discourage diversity, and as a result of all this, many researchers questioned how Greek organizations align not only with their own principles and purpose, but with the institution's purposes, values, and attitudes as well. In reviewing the literature regarding fraternity and sorority membership's impact on academic success, we found that there were a lot of inconsistencies. Some researchers said membership led to an increase in GPA, while others found that it had no impact on GPA, and still others found that it negatively affected students' grade point average. Though this was very inconsistent, most researchers did agree that being affiliated with a Greek organization during the first year of college negatively affected academic success, but that this negative impact decreased over time. Many researchers also found that fraternity and sorority members had a high level of self-efficacy, which motivated them to achieve academic success as a result of their membership. Also, many researchers found that students living in on-campus fraternity and sorority houses had high levels of academic success, while those living in off-campus houses had lower instances of academic success. As for student engagement, most researchers agreed that membership in a Greek-affiliated organization had a positive impact on curricular and co-curricular engagement and community service. According to researchers Cruz and Moore, fraternity and sorority members were 179% more likely to volunteer than non-members. Researchers also found that fraternity and sorority membership contributed to increases in self-confidence and leadership skills. Another theme that emerged from the literature review was the idea of multicultural sensitivity. Many researchers found that white students were overrepresented in fraternities and sororities as a whole, and reinforced the idea that many of these groups are very homogeneous in their makeup. Some researchers even indicated that fraternity and sorority members were less aware and concerned with social and moral injustices. However, there were some researchers who claimed that fraternities and sororities fulfill the cultural needs of all students by offering different types of groups, and some studies indicated that fraternities and sororities increased opportunities for members to interact with diverse populations through various community service projects. So as a whole, you can see that there are a lot of inconsistencies in the research about Greek life, which is the reason why we wanted to research this topic further, specifically looking at fraternity and sorority members on Buffalo State's campus.
In order to find the answer to our hypothesis, we had to select the appropriate subjects for our sample. We used stratified random sampling. Our strata, or group, were students of Buffalo State College who were active members of Greek life during the fall of 2012. Out of approximately 200 students in our chosen strata, we surveyed 34 subjects. Our research team collected data using a Likert scale survey as our assessment tool. The survey consisted of 36 questions broken down into 4 sections. The sections consisted of factors that influenced a student's decision to join their chosen fraternity or sorority, student engagement as a result of their involvement, and academic success and cognitive development credited to the experiences with their fraternity or sorority. SPSS software was then used to analyze the data. Responses to the surveys were logged into SPSS and a data file was created. We then used SPSS to run correlations to look for significant connections between responses to the survey. We also used the software to create bar graphs showing significant relationships between responses. Students were asked about the importance of certain factors in joining their chosen fraternity or sorority. While the results to this question did not show any strong data suggesting any one factor being of extreme importance, this graph shows that all factors were important. The graph may suggest that value and mission, philanthropic interest, and a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood were slightly more important. Perhaps the least important is shown in the small dip in distinguishing and promoting cultural identity. The second section focused on student engagement and sense of belonging on the Buffalo State campus. Again, you see that the data shows that the majority of the subjects agreed that as a member of their Greek organization, they felt more connected and viewed different aspects of their on-campus experience as positive due to their membership in Greek life. The third section of the survey looked at academic success and cognitive development. Similar to the literature, we found once again that students involved in Greek life attributed their success to their experiences in Greek life. On average, students reported that their Greek experiences were at the very least important to things like developing skills for their future career, as well as improving their creative and critical thinking. We took a look at the breakdown of some individual responses that we found had strong correlations with other questions on the survey. About 75% of those surveyed said that distinguishing and promoting their cultural identity was important or very important in their selection process of choosing a fraternity or sorority. This chart showing a Pearson correlation shows a significant relationship between students who reported that promoting and distinguishing their cultural identity was an important reason for choosing their Greek organization and those who reported developing a sense of identity and an increasement in self-confidence. The majority of students replied that the academic standards of their Greek organization was important or very important in their selection process. This Pearson correlation shows that while students chose their Greek organization for their academic standards, it did not significantly impact their ability to creatively or critically think. The majority of students reported social interaction was an important part of the reason they joined the organization. This correlation shows a significant relationship between students who join their for social interaction and their ability to work cooperatively with others and feel comfortable contributing to group conversations.
In conclusion for our presentation and our research, Buffalo State students in a Greek organization felt the organization contributed to the following: increased student engagement, better academic performance, a more defined personal identity, and stronger social interaction. As we get to the limitations of our study, we found that the sample is not exhaustive of the Greek student population. While we collected 34 surveys, there are over 200 Greeks on campus. There was no access to GPA and other indicators of academic success, so while students may have felt that they chose their fraternity or sorority and that it led to their academic success, we have no hard data to back that up. There wasn't a baseline of non-Greek versus Greek students in regards to engagement or academics. So as I've said earlier, we weren't able to tell the difference on whether a non-Greek or a Greek student was more likely to be academically successful or more engaged. Finally, the study lacked a diversity of opinion. We got majority, pretty much all positive responses, and because of that, we didn't get any negative feedback. Finally, our learning outcomes with this study. We became proficient in the research process. We learned to critically evaluate and discuss qualitative and quantitative research, and we applied existing instruments to our research. And finally, we designed the framework for a strong quantitative research study. While the study wasn't complete, it really led us to be better student affairs professionals, and it made us feel comfortable with the process that we will face in the future.